I was just staring out the window and I seen it running on the side of the mountain behind Jasper Mill. And I watched it for 10 seconds and I didn't say anything because I was trying to compute what I was seeing.
While she was trying to compute what she was seeing, I was dodging cars that were stopping on the road and getting out and looking up at the hill at what she was looking at.
It was tall and it was slender. It was like a marathon runner on flat ground, but it was on the side of the mountain.
Hi there, you're listening to the Bigfoot Society podcast, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Every week I talk to individuals who have experienced Sasquatch in some way or another, so you won't want to miss an episode. Make sure you're subscribed on the platform that you're listening to, and share this episode with a friend. It does not cost a thing, and it helps the show continue to grow. If you'd like to hear Bigfoot Society episodes early and ad-free, you can do so by becoming a Patreon supporter or a YouTube channel member. Links to those are in the show notes. In Bigfoot Society, I've taken far too much of your time so far, so let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, got the privilege of talking to Mr. Ronnie Roseman again out there in Oakridge, Oregon. And this time we've got his daughter, Priscilla Davidson, and also her husband, Steve Davidson, along for the ride. They're both all on the phone right now. How's it going, guys?
Really good.
Great.
Awesome. First off, I want to ask Ronnie right off the bat. Ronnie, last time we talked about some pretty wild stuff that happened to you out there in Oakridge over the years. Has anything interesting happened to you Bigfoot-wise since we last talked?
Yeah, that was in April, wasn't it? There was a 2-year disconnect between me and any activities with these things, right? Because of the winters, there were hard winters, and then there were fires for 2 years. And the near proximity, so you couldn't get back in. All the smoke and activity and stuff, they probably left the area, and I didn't know if they'd be coming back. I went up there a few times, put up food, stuff, no signs of anything. And I went up there on my birthday in June, and the last time on the show I was talking about my gifting tree or whatever, where I built up a trust with them, playing guitar and singing, and taking the food in. And right behind that tree, which at probably 300-400 feet back in a little meadow, and there was Bigfoot tracks all over everywhere for about 100 square feet. The familiar tracks, the old man, the 23-inch tracks. In fact, my son-in-law and daughter seen them. We were together. I took them up there and showed them. And the big guy is the only one that had the toes that went in that showed distinctive 5 toes. The other ones were just on the surface, but no toe definition. Anyway, the big guy left toe definition. That's when I really counted. So the sizes of all the tracks, there were several different sizes. What I presumed to be the old lady was 15 inches, almost 9 inches at the ball, 7 inches at the heel. The old man, 23 inches in length, a little over 9 inches at the ball, 7 inches at the heel. And then the ones that might be young adults or juveniles or something with about 12-inch tracks or whatever, they were present. The whole family was there. And that's the ones that I had gotten acquainted with probably 2 years before. I tried to reestablish doing that, and nothing. I put the food up. A bear got a hold of it one time, and other critters and stuff for a while, but not them. But they let us know they were there. I went back up there with Dwayne, and because I told him all this, I wanted to show him the tracks back in there, and I've never seen Bigfoot tracks like that. You only see a few, maybe a series if you're lucky, but I've never seen them do that and leave tracks all over everywhere. They just left them everywhere. lots of tracks, and I don't know why they did that. Still working on that, but maybe they wanted me to know they were there. I don't know. Maybe they missed my singing or my food. I don't know. But anyway, so I took Dwayne up there, and he still has PTSD from the experiences we had up there previously before I gained their trust. And so he didn't want to go back in there and look at the tracks. It was too far back in, because he's still, even though he hunted that area for over 50 years, and he's not afraid of any type of animal. I told you, I think, that he's been charged by grizzlies twice, and it didn't bother him. But he's still, I don't think he's afraid of anything except these things. He has a very deep respect for Bigfoot. I took him up there, and he wanted to stay on the road. Well, I went back in and did my thing and took my guitar and stuff. Before I went back in, he was going to stay there. I've only heard the sound 3 times. Once was in 99 in the Siskiyous, and then twice up here, the air raid type sound, where you know that one. Are you there?
Yes. So you heard that one.
Yeah, I don't want you running out on me. I think I told you this last time. When I don't hear somebody coming back, I think they probably hung up and took off or something.
Exactly.
But I'm not used to getting this much attention. But so anyway, that come out. That's the one that sounds like an air raid siren and goes on for this lengthy. And that's the one that if it's close enough, this one sounded like it was at a pretty good distance, but I'm sure it was for us. But if you hear that close up, which I have it, that's the one that makes your hair stand up. But anyway, so we heard that, and then I went back and did my thing. And then when I come back, nothing happened with me while I was back in there singing. And I stayed a while, about a half an hour at least, but I come back out, and Dwayne said that while he was standing there, he heard something that was in the woods, not far, somewhere in there. He didn't know exactly what it was, couldn't tell, but right after he heard something on that side, behind him, he's standing on the access road. Behind him, he said, sounded like rocks hitting together. And that's a typical sign, right? So I think that they were watching him. They weren't worried about me. I think they knew what I was doing. But I haven't really, I'm trying to get my nerve back up. It's almost like starting over. And I've been up there with people. I've been up there 2 or 3 times by myself, and which is unnerving. But I think that maybe for me I just now got a car, thanks to the kids here, so I can start going back up there. I haven't been able to go up there because of bad car problems, but I can start going back up there now if it's not too much snow or roads too messed up. But I can start going back. But I think what I need to do is what I did from the first time. I need to go by myself, because they made it evident that two times. I think I explained this the last time, but every 2 times I took somebody up there, they got intimidating. One time really heavy intimidating, and it's because I brought somebody with.
Sure.
So they want one person, and I'm the one that got their trust, and I'm the only one. I think that I'm going to reconnect here with them. I've just got to steal up and go back in there by myself. And that's what I'm going to have to do. But now I got a chance to do it. I'm going to start doing that and see if I can reestablish the relationship I had before. It was great because I go up there, and as soon as I did it, once they left an apple there, I think it was for me. But when I established that trust, they were there. It was great to sit there. Once you're there, you're never going up every time, but once you're there, and they're whooping high-pitched sounds continuously. As long as I stayed there, they kept whooping from the area that I would guess was the area where they left these tracks this time. But they're whooping and stuff. I want to get back into that if I can.
Do you have any type of sound recorder? Have you ever considered bringing a sound recorder up there with you?
I consider it, and then I forget about it, and I just end up not. I believe it or not, and a lot of people probably wouldn't believe this, but I never been out or into this to prove it to anybody. I don't care, and I just don't. Even if I seen one, I would tell it, but I used to think, God, maybe I wouldn't even tell anybody. I really don't care about impressing anybody or getting in the limelight with it. But of course, now it's different. We got some activities going on. I'm writing a book. My daughter has a festival, Bigfoot Festival, coming up next year.
Ronnie, tell me about I didn't know you were starting to write a book. Can you tell me about that?
I'd like to clear this up because I've had the title for this book for at least 15 years. I think Todd Neese, if he remembers, because I remember telling about the book and the title about 15, 20 years ago. And it's called Bigfoot and Beyond. And since then, as you probably know, Cliff Barackman has got a radio show by the same name.
Yep.
I think I could use this name no matter what, even if I had to change one word or something. But I got a message. My daughter got a message to him about it. I was concerned about it, and he said he thanked me for at least considering him before I did put a book out with that title. I just would like to clear that up. That I like to be original, and I want to use that name. I'm planning on using that name, but I just don't want anybody to think I'm copying off somebody else for a title. That's all. But anyway, the book, it's actually two books in one. Bigfoot, that's of course about Bigfoot. And the book is mostly about my own experiences. It's not about other reports and stuff. I'll have a few reports and there are interviews I've done with people. But for the most part, it's my experiences in my life with the weird and the unusual and stuff. So the first book is Bigfoot, and then Beyond is a lot of crazy sounding stuff or experiences that I had, from ghostly activity, flying saucers, and too much. I don't want to get too. I feel fun. That's why I've never printed this because it's just too much. It sounds crazy. If you take one phenomena, that's one thing. But if you take a dozen or more experiences with separate categories of unusual phenomena, it starts sounding like you're going to lose screw. So that's why I never wanted to do it. But I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care. I'm getting older, and probably only a year or two before they can mock me anyway.
Oh, Ronnie, you got to do it. That's going to be a fantastic book. I'm excited to read it once you release it, for sure. Yeah,
it's got my involvement, and I spent a lot of time in Southwest Arkansas, the Fat Monster. Got a lot of stuff on that, and my relationship that I had with Smokey Crabtree, and then the Honey Island Swamp Monster. I've done some pretty good research, I think, on that. And I know that mainstream Bigfooters, they don't give much credibility or any to three-toed type of bipeds. So that gets interesting. I've had a few arguments and ticked off a few scientists. Some of them were friends with me out there. With one of my biggest screaming matches was with Richard Greenwell of the International Society of Cryptozoology. We're coming out of the swamp areas there and Honey Island, the swamp, Louisiana. And I thought we did some good interviews, got a lot of good information at the family. There was no reason to think that anybody was faking anything. Of course, being scientific minded, it's one of the biggest yelling matches we've had in a lot of years of being together. In fact, we only had two, and that was one of them over that, because primates do not have three toes. Any science knows that. I got enough on it. I think that it brings it up to the table, yes, that there's credibility, they do exist. So I got a lot of stuff on that. And then the weird stuff I might share with, I don't know how much time, I don't want to take too much time to pluck these guys out. But God, there's so much stuff in there, it's unbelievable. I actually saw the silver cord, and that's the cord that I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that anybody seen this or there was a history on it at the time. It was in 1972. I seen the cord that goes out from your abdomen or your center around your heart or whatever, and it goes off into another dimension. I've seen that, and without knowing what it was. That's an interesting story on that. And I've had voices, which is indicative of mental illness, of course, but I've had voices tell me things that were going to happen in the future, even. Told me once that I whispered in my right ear that I was going to meet George Harrison, which I did about 6 weeks later. That was witnessed by my wife, by the way. Another one that was witnessed with a voice thing was that I had a brother, and nobody in the family knew about it. And that's the story. Ended up having a brother nobody knew about, my dad, except my dad, but nobody ever said anything. And there was reasons for that beyond his control. And he ended up being the pallbearer for his dad. He'd been looking for 40 years. But the voice told me about him a year before anybody knew about him, including me. And they saved my butt from the sheriff's department that was coming to get me one time because I called the police on myself. I called the district attorney's office accidentally. And I was in another state, and they got a warrant, and they were coming for me. And the voice told me, go now. And I only got about a block, 2 blocks maybe at the most. The sheriffs were on their way, and they were eyeing me over. 2 big, burly, ugly-looking sheriffs, deputies. I have nothing against law enforcement. I love law enforcement as long as they're good guys. But they were on the way to get me. If I'd have waited 5 more seconds, 10 seconds, I would have been in the Hoosgow. So they saved me there. Yeah, true. And there's several other incidences too where they helped me. But I could talk about the book here for a long time. So that'll give you a little bit of an introduction. It actually gets crazier than that.
I love talking to you so much that, so if listeners are like, why aren't you talking to Ronnie forever? Because I have talked to Ronnie, guys. There's another episode that you have to listen to with me and Ronnie, and it will just rock your face off. So I'm going to have that in the show notes, but I am going to talk to Priscilla and Steve tonight. This is a 3-ring circus for sure.
So later on, I want to send you some stuff later on, some inserts or maybe a chapter or something or whatever for the book thing. But all these experiences I've had have been close up and personal. 3 spaceships I've seen. 2 of the classics were the classic saucers. One was in the daytime, up close. I could see every little mark on it. And metallic saucer, daytime. The second one's nighttime, the middle of the night. And my wife, which is not into any of this stuff, we had a flying saucer come in directly overhead and stop. And it was silent the whole time and put a light on. And so there's stuff like that. And it just sounds too much for one person to have all these experiences. But let's touch on that later on. Right now, I had mix all this stuff. This is Bigfoot. That's bad enough, right? So over that. Let me lead into this story with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
About two weeks before Stephen's sighting, which he'll tell you about, but he told me because I was talking about Bigfoot, and this is like 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was.
It was 2008.
2008. And he said that I'll probably see Bigfoot before you do. And within 2 weeks, he did. And he said he did. I didn't believe him. My daughter, it was 8:30 in the morning, and she hollered out from the bedroom, said, "Dad, Steve just seen Bigfoot," because she was on the phone with him. And I said, "Yeah, tell him that I said hello." And she said, "He said you would say that." But anyway, here you go. You guys, you want to tell me about the story?
Right. Yeah, you should go first.
In that conversation, I told him that Bigfoot's not crazy. He's crazy. At any rate, in November.
Let me just say, I know the exact words. I said, all this time I've been telling you. I said, now they're there, aren't they? He says, yeah, just because Bigfoot exists doesn't mean you're not crazy. That's what it is.
That is.
Yep, all right.
Yeah. In November of 2008, I was in the nighttime academy for reserve police, and I was working a day job driving a dump truck for a logging outfit up in Onalaska, Washington. And my sighting was like so many. I was driving down this road like I had done 100 times, and all of a sudden there it was, and just as fast as it was there, it was gone. It was really just a flash. And I would have almost thought that my eyes were playing tricks on me, except that I had a CB in the dump truck and I could hear two hunters that I didn't know. I was getting reception on my CB from their handheld walkie-talkies or whatever they were talking on. And one of them says to the other one, "Did you just see what I just saw?" And the other guy calls back and says, "I think I just saw Bigfoot." And he goes, yeah. And then the other guy says, "I think I did too." And I went, "Oh man, I did see it." I get a hold of my wife and I told her what happened. I'm like, I can't be Ronnie Roseman's son-in-law and see Bigfoot. They're going to think it runs in the family. But that's really just the gist of that story. And it was just for a second. I really couldn't make out any features. It was backlit. I saw a silhouette. It was incredibly fast. Yeah, there's no way it was definitely not a man in a suit. No human being moves that fast. And where it was at would not be where you would try to prank somebody. And then, am I leaving anything out? I'm terrible. I'm a terrible story. He's going to tell us.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to ask you some questions real quick before we let Ronnie jump in. So this is a really unique story because I've never heard one where the main thing that made you think you saw Bigfoot was hearing people through your radio, walkie-talkie. Like, that's incredible. Was there anything from the blur that you saw that made you think outside of that, hey, this is probably Bigfoot, what I'm seeing, or is it just all really blurred together?
No, it was absolutely startling. I absolutely saw a silhouette, and I was just scanning, and I looked past it and then immediately looked back at where I had just seen it. It was very startling. And then it was, a few seconds later when I heard the CB transmission. So I thought, did I just really see that? And then I heard the radio transmission, which let me know that, yeah, I did. I wasn't the only one that saw it.
And didn't you say that you felt like prey?
Yeah, it felt a lot like being in the presence of an African lion. It was that startling if you were just traipsing along here and we're in Oregon now. But if you had just been walking around in the woods where you live and all of a sudden there's a lion there, I thought maybe, I don't know what they eat, might be on the menu. This was in Onalaska, Washington. It's about halfway up the state of Washington, probably terrible with mileage, within 50 miles of I-5 through Washington.
You saw the silhouette of it. Did you remember any specific details about the silhouette? Noticing any certain part of it look out of the ordinary or anything like that?
Yeah, it looked really skinny to me. It didn't look it wasn't the big, like Patterson film type of creature. It was very skinny. My initial, at the time, I don't know, but like when I picture it in my head right now, it's very orangutan.
I get that a lot. What were the certain things that made you choose that word orangutan like?
Its arm seemed skinny, and I could tell where the forearm and the bicep started, kind of thing. Like when you look at an orangutan, their joints are very, I guess, thin compared to the rest of their limb. It had that type of feature to it.
Did you notice anything weird or out of the ordinary about the way that the animal was, or the creature was moving?
Other than the speed, no.
Okay, so it's extremely fast is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you able to notice anything about the head shape of the creature at all?
That seemed very, like almost no neck. It was a blur. I don't remember it having a neck. It seemed like the general shape of what you would think. The drawings and stuff that I've seen of Sasquatch and some of the pictures and stuff are similar. It was skinny.
Very interesting. So it sounds like the whole thing happened in probably just a few seconds.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was. When I say it was fast, I didn't see the gait of its walk or run or anything. It was, I don't know if you've ever seen, trying to think of a really fast animal when it gets scared and bolts, and it's just almost like it's just shot out of a slingshot, just gone. You see its initial where it moves, and then it's just gone. And I don't where it was at. I doubt I would be able to walk through there real well. Certainly, I wouldn't be able to run.
Interesting. So at this point, if anyone else has anything detail-wise to throw in with the story, go right ahead.
Okay, I'm right in.
All right.
This is the rest of the story.
Okay.
From what I remember. Now, that was at 8:30 in the morning when he called it and to Priscilla to tell her, and which I didn't believe it, because he had already said 2 weeks before he was going to see one before me, which he did. But from what I remember, he came in at around 5:30 or so after work, and he had 2 bottles of rum, and he's never done that before. And he had a very concerned look on his face. And I knew right away he had seen something. And he says, "Let's talk about Bigfoot." We talked about Bigfoot for about 3 hours.
Wow.
He told me that he was going in the woods with his dump truck, and to dump debris of his truck, he was returning an empty load. And at 8:30, around 8:30 in the morning, in between 2 trees, the sun was coming up in the back. So like he said, he'd see the silhouette of it standing there with the morning light behind. And he said it standing there, and he says, just glaring at him. He said he looked once, looked back, he figured it was somebody with a helmet on, a hard hat. Then he looked back again, and he knew it wasn't a person. They weren't supposed to be back in there anyway. And he said that it looked like it was staring right through him. And I asked him, I said, "Did you get out and look for tracks or anything?" After he had told me, because he looked back again, or when he heard the radio, or I don't know if it was before or after the radio thing, but he said he looked, and he said that's when he seen it move from where it was standing like a gray streak. It was extremely fast. And I asked him, I said, "Did you get out and look around for tracks or something?" He says, "No." He said, "Windows up and the door's locked, and I was getting out of there." And he says, "You know me." He said, "If it had been a bear, I'd have went over and looked for tracks." But he said, "Not this." I said, "Well, you felt like your life was threatened or something?" Yes, he felt like his life could be in danger. So it was intense to him. And then he drove on out. But very believable. And he was only about 60 feet, I think, from it. He got to see the whole outline and stuff. And I remember him telling me, because I had a poster of a composite drawing based on Lynn Crabtree's sighting when he was 13 years old of the Falk Monster. And it's a lot slimmer than the bulky Bigfoot type. And I remember Steve saying that it resembled that poster more than it did the Patterson creature. And that's about all I got to say with that.
Wow. It's Steve, you agree with everything Ronnie just said there?
Yeah, that sounded accurate. I think sometimes he embellishes and likes to say that I was shaking and scared, and that I was not.
I was,
and I'm glad he didn't do it this time.
Yeah, you did it. I did not. I was.
Oh boy.
He's a man guy, a man cop. When I said I seen him shaking when he had the 2 bottles of rum when he came in the door, he didn't appreciate that before, so I wasn't going to say that this time. But I'm glad he did. Okay.
You guys are great. You guys are great. Thank you, Ronnie, for filling in the extra details there. I appreciate that.
Anytime, remember.
We actually had a better sighting that I didn't see. Me and Priscilla were together when she saw one, and there's a funny circumstance.
So it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Steve was driving, and we were heading to Springfield from Oakridge, and we were on the Jasper Road. And when we got to the Jasper Mill, I was just staring out the window, and I seen it running on the side of the mountain behind Jasper Mill. And I watched it for 10 seconds, and I didn't say anything because I was trying to compute what I was seeing.
While she was trying to compute what she was seeing, I was dodging cars that were stopping on the road and getting out and looking up at the hill at what she was looking at.
It was tall and it was slender. It was like a marathon runner on flat ground, but it was on the side of the mountain. And it was pure black, and it had short hair. I know it had short hair. It was like like a Doberman's coat, but it was tall and skinny. It wasn't traditional big Sasquatch. And then like after 10 seconds of watching this, and then we go around the corner, and I'm like, I tell Steve, I'm like, I think I just saw Bigfoot.
First, I said, I'd like to thank you for saying something while it was there. And so she didn't even point it out to me. But like I said, I had been dodging. There was cars. All the cars in front of us were stopping, and people were getting out and looking up at the hillside. But the backstory of that is the whole backside of that, of the hills there was all on fire, and it was all with fire crews back there, which would give reason why it would choose a path around people, because it couldn't be where it would normally be.
And I felt terrible for not telling him as I watched it for that long. But I was honestly, like, I think in shock, like just trying to figure out what I'm looking at.
And then afterwards you were like, no, it had to be a person like in a black spandex bodysuit or something. I must have seen it wrong. And we tried to climb up there to where she saw it running.
So I told my dad, and he got a hold of Todd Neese, and Todd Neese came down, and we went up we hiked up to where I saw this thing.
We almost lost Ronnie that day. He started sliding down the mountain, and he grabbed onto a hornet's nest to keep himself from falling off.
That was the first indication that my son-in-law might really care about when it comes down to it, because he come over and grabbed me before I went over the edge and pulled me up. That was pretty nice.
Instinct.
But it was such rough terrain.
You could hardly stand there. Certainly nobody could run there.
Yeah. Let me add to that. We got up there on the level ground before the grade, before it went up, where the thing had crossed from one tree line to another, going up the grade at what angle would that be? 45-degree angle?
Yeah, it was like a 45-degree angle.
When it was running up in between the tree lines. But on the level ground, you had to watch where you walked, because there were pot marks all over. Every 2 inches or 6 inches or 8 inches or foot, there was pot marks, and with grass, dry grass, brown.
It's just a rock.
There's no way to run there on the level ground. You would have, without spraining an ankle or possibly breaking an ankle, so you would not do that.
Well, and the hillside is so steep. Every 2 steps, you lose a step.
Not only that, the steep hillside, but the pock marks were all over the hillside on top of it. You couldn't run on level ground like that, much less uphill with those pock marks without spraining an ankle.
Todd's thoughts on it?
He thought it was, I'm sincere in that it was, I described what I seen, and there was no way, Todd said that there's no way that person would be up there. It was so rocky and rough.
Not only that, when we were getting close to the area, it was already, it was dusk when we started out. By the time Todd got here, when it was straight up, and it was coming down in dark, we had to wait to hike back out too. And so we didn't go right to where the thing had crossed to look it over. It was getting dark, and we decided to go back. So we didn't get to the exact area. We hadn't reached it yet, but we were close to it. Those pot marks were all over everywhere, and where she had seen it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Were you able to ever get to that part where the creature was and look for evidence of footprints or broken branches, etc.?
It's mostly rock there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't think we'd be able to get a footprint. And the footprints that we made were, when you did encounter dirt, you were sliding. So I don't...
we just never went back. We just dropped it at that, but we just didn't feel up to it.
We did have a sighting here in Oakridge by a reserve officer. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, you should talk about that.
I'll be real quick, Steve. One more question about the previous one. When you were dodging people that were pulled over, was anyone taking pictures?
Didn't notice.
Okay, no problem.
There was 3 cars pulled over at the bridge the train bridge that is right there past the Jasper Mill. There's 3 cars pulled over, and there was probably 8 or 10 people out of their cars looking over where I had just seen it.
Yeah, but it wasn't obvious at first. There was so much going on. there's this little, right where this was happening, the road does like an S swerve and goes underneath a railroad trestle. And the cars that were stopped were just on the east side of the railroad trestle, just before the road takes a sharp curve to go under it. And there was a giant vulture taking off from the guardrail, and there was a dead deer. And I thought somebody hit a deer is what I thought happened. I thought that's why everybody was stopped. And then it became obvious that that deer had not been hit recently, as indicated by the vulture. There was a lot going on, and I didn't notice if anybody had a camera or not.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, go right ahead. Feel free to share what you can about that other sighting you were referring to.
I'm a retired Oakridge police officer, and we had a reserve officer that was with our department. He comes, I was on a day off, and he comes over to my house, and he goes, "Hey, I need your help." And something was really wrong. And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He says, "I was cutting wood up on the 1912 road, which is a Forest Service road, just a dirt road." And he said, all of a sudden I had this overwhelming feeling that I was being watched. And as I turned around, and there was a Sasquatch standing there, and he looked so angry. He said, "I dropped everything, jumped in my truck, and left." I said, "So what do you need?" He says, "Can we get some people and some guns and go up there and get my brand new chainsaw? It's sitting in the road." So we packed everybody up, and we went up there. It was nighttime by this time. And we went up there to where he had been, and there was this brand new Husqvarna chainsaw sitting in the road, just like he said. He dropped everything and left. And it was dark. We didn't get an opportunity to look for footprints too much. We were looking in the headlights. And the funny thing is my daughter had come with us, and she had how old was at the time? She was just talking.
2.5.
2.5. And while we were looking for footprints, she was just babbling along, talking how 2.5-year-olds do. And all of a sudden she looks out the window and she says, "Monkey." Uh-oh. She saw something she thinks is a monkey. So we don't know if she saw anything or not, but I know that this guy, I've known this guy a long time. He's a police officer. He's not afraid of things, and something scared him enough that he left all of his tools up there and came straight down.
There's no reason for your daughter to have said monkey, except for if she saw something that looked like a monkey. That's incredible.
She's incredibly smart too, and her sighting means more to me than some adults.
Is that the one that he said that the guy called in, left his equipment there and said the thing was on the embankment about 15, 20 feet from him and cocked his head?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Let me fill in if you don't mind on that.
Let's go, Ronnie.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. It was late at night. I was sleeping, actually.
Late at night is like 7.
That's old people. That's the same thing. But anyway, Steve came in. He was still on duty. And he says, "We just checked out. There's this Bigfoot sighting or whatever. And thought I should get up and run out in the middle of the night or whatever and start looking for Bigfoot."
No, that's a different one.
Oh, it's a different one. I thought it was different. Okay.
Well, Steve has encountered a lot of reports being a police officer, and they don't file them.
We don't take a report on it because we only took reports on things that were going to go to the district attorney, and there's no crime committed if you see a Bigfoot. We would. I've worked for departments where we would have taken log notes about it. This is not one of those departments where we would take log notes about it.
Okay, so no log notes. It's just whatever's in your memory. That's the only record.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so since I'm on it and I brought that other story in, I might as well finish that one. But I thought it was when he said chainsaw and all that stuff. In fact, while I was listening to him, I thought he was leaving me out on something, because I didn't remember those details like that. But anyway, it's a different story. That's why. But the reason I thought it is because this fella who called in the police, he was so scared, he actually called the police department. And he left his chainsaw and everything too. But Steve came in about 11 o'clock at night, and he says, just got a call in on a Bigfoot sighting and water. And I thought, just tell me about it tomorrow, because I know going out, it'd be tough to find evidence and everything. in the daytime, much less at night. And I don't even know where I'm going. But he took his patrol car, went out and showed me the direction to go looking and look for a big tree on the left. And there's like only 10,000 big trees cut down. But so anyway, I did that to make him happy, run around for a little bit, and I came back home and went to bed. But the guy had called in, and Steve was, you got the call of dispatch or something, didn't you?
I vaguely remember this story.
Okay. Well, I'll try to remember. I'm trying to fill it in. But Steve got a call. He was on duty anyway. He was sent out, or the guy was in town. He came in from the woods. He was cutting down trees. We had some type of storm, a lot of down trees and stuff. A lot of people were cutting woods up, or trees out in the woods. This guy was by himself. It was around dusk. He had his pickup and his tools, and he was just sawing away. And he had a feeling something was up, or looking at him like a Bigfoot. That's why I thought it was the same story. But anyway, he said he looked, and he said there was nobody around right where he was working. And he thought, well, maybe it's some guy standing up there. A lot of people do that because I think the mind just doesn't digest right away what you're looking at. You're looking at something that's not supposed to be. So you always go to the first thing that sounds normal. So he thought it was a man. He looked back, went to cut, and then he looked back again and realized that what he was looking at, it was standing there only 15 feet from me, up a grade, up an embankment a little bit, and it was standing there staring at him, but he covered with hair, and he's just staring at him. He said he stood up, and he said he cocked his head, and he says this thing did the same exact thing, like maybe mimicking or mocking him, I don't know, but he said it cocked his head just like he did, staring at him. And that was it. That put the fear of God in him, or Jesus in him in there. And he said he jumped in the pickup, left all his tools and everything, and hightailed it out of there. And it was dark by the time he got out. But he called the police. And so Steve met him, talked to him. And the next night, Steve had him over at the house. And he brought 2 kids with him. And we talked about Bigfoot for a few hours. And he made it clear that he wanted to remain anonymous. So many in this town, and so many reports I've got here, people do not want it out. They have to live here. They have a business and all of that. And so we got to hear the story firsthand. I've never seen him again, but it was an interesting story. He did not want publicity, and he actually was so afraid he called the police. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Priscilla, do you mind? I want to make sure that we are able to talk about the Sasquatch Summerfest that's coming up next year.
Uh-huh. Yes, July of 2024. Okay. We'll talk about it. My guest speakers are Todd Neese and David Shealy. He has the Skunk Ape headquarters in Florida. And Christy Sanders, she used to do the information for BFRO and log all the sightings and just all the data analysis. And Cliff Barackman, I just got him booked from Finding Bigfoot. And I have Jill Remensnyder and Brett Eichenbacher, the directors and producers of Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. So we're going to have movies in the park, and they're going to play both documentaries on Friday and also on Saturday. And people can stay the night in the park because I'm renting out the whole park, Green Waters Park in Oakridge, Oregon. And there's an amphitheater there. And then on Sunday, we're going to have guest speakers on a panel so people can have questions and answers. And we're going to have a beer garden and live music. And we're also going to have, so I have this disc of Bigfoot sounds of, it's, what would you say, 20 different sounds?
Sure, he's familiar. Ron Moorhead's tapes.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna have that on the Oakridge, Oregon is known for it's the mountain bike capital of the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so we have bike trails everywhere, and Green Waters Park has a bike trail, and the city administrator is going to light up the bike trail and set it up to where we have the Bigfoot sounds. So people can go on a little It's like a half mile or maybe a quarter mile excursion to where they can hear the Bigfoot sounds, and it'll be a lot of fun.
What are the chances that the Sierra Sounds are going to bring something in? I'm serious. You play the Sierra Sounds and stuff happens.
Yeah. So now that you say that, the back of the park is Leduc Road, and Leduc Road has had so many Bigfoot sightings.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yeah. So who knows what it's going to bring in. And I'm going to have personal testimonials of people's stories and experiences and their sightings. And so I'm gathering those stories, and a lot of them are on Leduc Road, which is on the back of the park.
This is news to me. I didn't know she was going to be playing those sounds anywhere, but they'll be playing it without me. I think I told you the last time what got me in trouble with these things. They were coming at our camps, it's on me and Dwayne, but there was nothing threatening. They didn't do anything. Threw a few rocks in the morning when we got up to hike out or something. But I hit some trees or whatever, something like that. It was subtle. But when we had our bad experience that night, it was because I can't do it justice at all, but about the third sound in Ron Moorhead's tapes, I believe it is, it's right on with what I heard in the Siskiyous in 99 next to my tent. So me and Dwayne were going over sounds that he had heard in the 40 years he'd been hunting this area. And I come up with that one that I was trying to emulate it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I did that. And it wasn't 20 minutes. This group of freaking creatures, which Bigfoot, but I don't even like using that term. Silly Disneyland. But that's what we got. But anyway, whole family of at least 5 were headed our way about a mile away and getting louder and louder, letting us know they were coming. That's when we were tormented for over 2 hours with them right behind our tent. One of them almost charging the tent, coming up quick and then going back. Went for 2 hours because of that sound. I'm not going to be out there with any crazy hostile
I know.
sound.
No, I was like, there's no way Ronnie's going to be out there with the Sierra Sounds after what happened.
If they had any idea what we went through there, I guarantee you they wouldn't either.
So if that little story that Ronnie shared sounds awesome, listen to the first Ronnie interview, because that story takes about an hour to share and it's incredible. But Priscilla, back to the festival, you're going to be playing the Sierra Sounds the night before the second day. Are people going to be able to tent camp in that same park?
Yes. They can have overnight camping. They can bring their own tent. It's $25 to stay in the park. We're going to have campfire stories, live testimonials of people who have had their sightings here in Oakridge.
The ones that'll show up anyway.
And I have a whole group of testimonials of people who want to remain anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I really wish that they would tell their own story, but I guess that I'm going to have to tell it for them.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's been so many sightings here in Oakridge.
Oh, there's so many. We've been here 10 years. And of course, I got to get the word out. And 95% of the people, they're pretty good-hearted, not trying to be mean, but they sure get a laugh when they see me coming. I get the stuff even from the neighbors and stuff. Hey, I just seen a 14-foot Bigfoot the other day. Got to let me know when you see that stuff so I can get out there and check it out.
Exactly.
So, who has had his encounter with Bigfoot? So I'm gonna have my husband complete this story.
Okay.
Because he's better explaining things than me, and he's a friend of ours, but he's a hunting guide.
Culling and stuff, so they use him if there's a problem lion or a problem, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, he really knows what he's doing. The government contracts him to tree animals, bear and mountain lions and stuff. But I'll let you finish. Go. His encounter with Bigfoot, when his dogs stopped dead in their tracks because they were scared.
He's had 2 of those. There's one that he told us right away, where he was at an area up here. I can give you road names and stuff, but that won't probably matter. The area is called that's Black Canyon, or not Black.
It's up there by the.
Yeah, I think the area is called Black Canyon.
Old Growth Forest.
At any rate, he was there's this Forest Service road where he runs his hound dogs, because when you're running a pack of hound dogs, a leash probably isn't a good idea, because they'll drag you away. And his dogs are not afraid of anything, and that's what they do. They chase mountain lions and bears and stuff. And all of a sudden, his dogs stopped, and it was nighttime. His dogs stopped and wouldn't go any further. So he went up to see what they saw, because he thought maybe they were on a bear or something, but it was weird that they stopped. And he put his headlights off into the tree line where the dogs were barking and growling at. And he says that he saw a Sasquatch there and that it screamed at him, but the scream was, the way he describes it, was in his head. And so I thought that was an interesting statement. So we looked into it, and it seems comparable to something that I've heard that lions do, where they use like a low frequency growl, where it's almost like the sound is happening in your head. But I don't have any experience with that, and it's not my story. But he's definitely freaked out about it. In this area, we were there bear hunting, and I told him about this big bear that we had seen, and he's a guide for bear hunts, and he didn't care. He doesn't go there. Even if a client wants him to go there, he doesn't go there. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because that's putting your money where your mouth is.
I might add on to that a little bit.
All right.
But I knew this fella. I did, in fact, when the kids here got to know him a little bit and stuff through family and stuff or whoever, but I actually knew him at least a year before. He's one of the several people that got me on the side and told me about some of his Bigfoot experiences, which is great when you get a bit of a name being into something like that. 95% of the people think it's ridiculous or you're silly, or they have fun with it, like I was saying. But the good thing about that, the people that have had experiences but don't want to tell anybody, but they really want to tell someone, they have somebody like me, if they think they can trust me, and they tell me their stories, but they want to remain anonymous. And this fellow was one I got to know earlier that did that. He heard about me and talked to me on the side, and he's legit, game guide and all of that. And he told me the areas he went into. He's big tracks all the time. And he said that he was afraid, but that's his job. And he didn't want it out because that he could lose his clients and stuff if it affect his business. That's one reason. He said you've seen him all the time, or not every day, but he's seen him regularly at tracks in this area where he hunt and take people back in. And he said when he went in, he sometimes verbally, but a lot of times mentally, he would say, "I'm not here to bother you. I'm not here for you. Please leave me alone." And it worked for a long time, evidently, until this time that happened with what Steve said. But he called me up one time, and before all of this, getting together with the family, and told me that he had seen tracks this one day and had little tracks with it. So that was interesting. But yeah, the guy is credible. I've been to his house. He's credited on hunts and himself. I think over 260 bear, I think it is, he's killed. So he's an experienced hunter, professional hunter, and he's not a guy to make up stuff. And he does not want his name identified with us out there. So that's just one of many, but that's interesting. Okay, anybody else, or I can continue? I don't know.
Ronnie, you're the best, man.
You don't know how much I need that.
You're a rocking dude. Priscilla, I'm serious when I say I looked at your event before, but hearing you talk about it, like, this is going to be and I'm going to get so many people mad. I don't care, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be the #1 Bigfoot event of 2024. Like the sleeper event that people like, they're going to not go to the first one. And in future years, they're going to be like, I wish I had gone to the first one, but I didn't know about it. Like, seriously, it sounds incredible.
I'm out there. I'm working on my marketing. I just got my swag all done and my logos. And I'm in Lane County events and Eugene, Cascades, and Coast for Lane County in Oregon. And Cliff Brackman is going to be promoting it, and David Shealy out of Florida.
Alligator Dave.
Alligator Dave.
You know where I met him?
Wait, we can tell that story. But I've got incredible speakers. I've got great people, and I'm really hoping that it's a successful event. And the city administrator is so happy about this, and he's helping me every way he can to help promote it.
It's going to be amazing. I'm excited that you guys are doing this, and I can't wait to see what happens. So,
with Green Waters Park, it's going to be like no other Bigfoot festival or convention, because people can stay there for 3 days and camp in the park and be there one-on-one with the speakers and talk to them and see them. And it's not the private conference where you pay for dinner and then have the festival. It's like, it's all in one.
Yeah.
That's the unique thing about Green Waters Park, is that we can have it all together.
When she was trying to come up with how am I going to do this, I said, why don't you just throw the party that you want to be invited to?
Absolutely. That's so cool. Oh, man.
Okay, Brian.
Yes, right.
Backed up here. All this stuff happening. Steve with his Bigfoot sighting, then my daughter, and I haven't seen one yet. I've had him close enough to me, want to kill me and tear me apart or act like it.
Oh, yeah.
And I still haven't seen one. Anyway, they've seen it. Not only that, I've always talked about the flying saucers, the ghosts. I've got a whole history of that kind of stuff, and the flying saucers and other things. Now, they've witnessed Bigfoot thing. They've had ghostly activity here. Steve and my wife, who's been gone for a couple of years now, they seen a ghost come down the hallway. It was walking, nobody else in the house, went into my bedroom. They witnessed a lot of things, like on the paranormal stuff there. Not too far back, my son-in-law Steve here, and one of his daughters, my grandkids, Ashley, they were hunting in East Oregon and seen a flying saucer sitting there, seeing the dome.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, my granddaughter said that she thought that they had a mirror-like image to it. And it just it was vanished and gone, but they got a good look at it, the both of them. So they got the ghost stuff and everything. So it reminds me of something. And I haven't said anything about it, but I'm going to do it now. 15, 20 years ago, before anybody had witnessed any unusual activity, my son-in-law and daughter were over visiting some people having dinner. And they said, they asked something about me, the people, they're their friends. He said, oh, he believes in Bigfoot or whatever. And the guy said to him, he said, do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster? He said, yeah. Do you believe in flying saucers? He said, yeah. And he said, and then he told Steve, he said, yeah, we got one of them too. But what do you think now? You're in the group. You're in the group of no return.
I don't recall that.
Now, why would you? Yeah, I know there's a lot of things you don't. That's why I'm here to bring it back.
Hey, Ronnie.
What?
Ronnie, I got a question for you. Have you, and this is random, have you ever researched Bigfoot in Rainier, Oregon?
I don't do much research of anything.
Oh, sorry.
I don't pay any attention to my own thing. Whatever in my heart leads me in my direction.
Yes, sir.
It's a one-man. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Rainier, Oregon?
No, I haven't.
Okay, just curious.
We lived in Longview, and Rainier is right across the bridge.
Yeah, but I never went into the mountains, the woods there.
Okay, so never. Did you ever hear anything weird in the woods in the area?
Huh?
Did you ever hear of anything weird up in the woods in that area?
I never was in the woods much. I spent most of my time in the bar there.
Okay, yeah.
I just want to clarify. Are you talking about the city of Rainier, Oregon, or are you talking about Mount Rainier?
The city of Rainier, Oregon. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
No, we just lived across in Longview.
Ah, okay, cool. Just a random thing. There's some really wild stuff that has happened over the years in Rainier, Oregon, so I ask about it every once in a while. But
I've heard of some of them. Yeah, some very strange stuff.
Do you want to tell them about our the story of when we were camping with all our babies near Mount St. Helens?
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up. This is before the sighting, long before.
It was many years ago. My wife and I have daughters. They're all grown and have kids now. But when they were little, we camped on the backside of Mount St. Helens, really remote, on this bluff that kind of overlooked Skookum Meadows.
Oh, boy.
And we didn't know anything about that at the time. We've since looked into things and went, oh, yeah, okay. But
this was about 20 years ago now, right? Because
oh, God.
Is almost 18, and he was only 3 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been 20 years.
So 15 years ago. I just did the math. 15 years ago.
I won't question your math. Okay. That's not my gig. We were in our tent. We had gotten a very aggressive dog because of I was just getting into law enforcement, and
pit bull.
Yeah, we ended up with a pit bull, and he was really aggressive. And we were camping, and he was sleeping out by the fire, and we had the kids in the back of. We had a Chevy Suburban, and the kids were in the back of the Suburban, and me and my wife were in a tent. And this dog, if he saw any living creature, he was all over it. And he would chase a deer to the point where you'd wonder if you were ever going to see your dog again. He just never gave up the chase. And we heard somebody running. It sounded like on two legs to me, somebody running down this trail that we were camped at, like a dirt road that you had to four-wheel your way to get to. It went nowhere. We'd camped there for years. We'd never seen anybody back there.
And we are like on our own little cul-de-sac that overlooking a canyon, and our road to get to our cul-de-sac was like 3 miles in on a Forest Service road on the backside of Mount St. Helens. There was no traffic at all whatsoever, and if there was, we would hear it for 5 miles coming.
You'd hear it for a long ways. Anyways, we heard somebody running down this road and ran around our tent, and it woke us up. And then it ran off, and we were sitting there awake. My wife's asking, "Did you hear that?" I said, "Yeah." And we sat there and kind of thought about it for a second, and then.
But when it was running on two legs, you can tell when something is on two legs. It was running down the road to our tent. And I said, "Who's out there?" Because I was completely freaked out because I knew that our kids, they were all under the age of 6, and we have 5. And our pit bull is sitting on a couch by the fire.
A couch. We took the third seat out of this Suburban, set it next to the campfire, and the dog was curled up on that seat.
So I'm like, I asked Steve if he heard that, and he said, yeah. So I reluctantly said, "Who's out there?" And it walked completely around our tent and then took off into the woods. And our pit bull did not do anything at all until about a minute later, which it came over and started sniffing. And that was our very first encounter.
We went through all the normal stuff. Like, nobody was out here running through the woods in the middle of the night without a flashlight. And any animal that would have come into our camp, our dog would have absolutely responded to it. He hated other animals. He had a very strong prey drive. And also we were both adults, and we could tell that it was on two legs. And our initial thought was that it was a human. But later on, we find out that Skookum Meadows is known for that.
Yeah.
We had no idea. We were just trying to get away from people.
Yeah, I don't know what I missed.
Oh, and okay, so this is the craziest thing is we didn't look for tracks the next morning.
Oh, wow.
Getting out of our tent. But I was really excited to go home and tell my dad about what just happened. And then he's, "Did you look for tracks?" And then I just felt completely stupid because it's like, I have no idea why we didn't look for tracks. So it was.
There's a weird thing because after that, in that area, we had found tracks and we're like, you find yourself doing the weirdest things.
Yeah, the tracks came after that incident, didn't it?
Yeah, but you find yourself doing the weirdest mental gymnastics. We'd be out hiking in a really remote area back there behind Mount St. Helens, and you'd find footprints going up the side from a trail going up a very steep embankment, and you'd measure them and you go, oh God, they're only 9 inches or however big they are. It could be a person, and then you're like, there is nobody out here cross country hiking barefooted.
Right.
That is not happening. But you start doing these weird mental gymnastics, even when you're looking for, I can't say you, me, even when I'm looking for evidence, there's always that second guess there. No, that could be a human. And there's no way that's a human. Or if it is, we need to find them.
I blame my dad for all of this.
So did her mom. Her mom got up in the center after all the activity with UFOs and Bigfoot and everything else. And she said, it's him. He attracts all this stuff, right? So, but no, you can't get him.
It sounds, it sounds awesome to me, for sure. Guys, it has been an amazing time talking to you, and to be able to meet you, Priscilla and Steve. And thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. It has been awesome. Everyone definitely needs to check out SasquatchSummerfest.com is the best place to get info, right, Priscilla?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm looking for vendors currently, and it's going to be phenomenal. Thank you so much for interviewing us.
I'm going to stop recording, but I do have to tell you something, Ronnie, afterwards, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, hold on. Special thank you to Ronnie, Priscilla, and Steve for coming on the show today. If you're wanting to go out to Sasquatch Summerfest, you can use code Bigfoot Society to get 50% off your tickets to Sasquatch Summerfest. That's 2 words, Bigfoot Society. More information can be found in the show notes. Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Then we can start the conversation. And I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years, and it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening.